Welcome back to Executive Efficiency Series, brought to you by Expectus, conversations with business leaders about where operational efficiency is won or lost behind the scenes. In this episode, Denis sits down with Helge Biernath, CEO of Sunstall, to talk about one of the least visible but most expensive challenges in utility-scale solar logistics coordination. From tariff uncertainty and global material sourcing to fragmented delivery schedules and field waste, Helge shares why the solar industry is still operating in silos, and what it would take to build projects with the same efficiency mindset as world-class manufacturing. If your business depends on moving complex projects, managing multiple vendors, or reducing hidden operational costs, this conversation is packed with practical perspective. Here's Denis with Helge Biernath.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Executive Efficiency Podcast, brought to you by Expectus. And we have here this afternoon Helge Biernath with Sunstall. Helge, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I appreciate your time and your insights. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Thank you for having me here. It's always exciting to talk about efficiencies, and especially in the logistic realm. So it's going to be interesting.
Thank you. To start off, you being in the solar industry and the solar world being having its unique challenges, what do you think are currently the biggest logistics or supply chain challenges you see in that field?
I mean, as probably everybody know, due to the fact that we still haven't been able to onshore everything in the supply chain, we still have to deal with the incoming materials, whether it's from Southeast Asia or other countries. And so the coordination of all of that, and I can only speak to the project execution and not necessarily to manufacturing challenges and then how they get their supply chain organized, but orchestrating that with the challenges of tariffs and stop and go policies is rough, to say the least. Especially if money matters, typically it does, then how do I know what things cost today, tomorrow, and how I'm going to, ship them and send them? So yes, it's quite a challenge in that regards.
Yeah, thank you for the insight. I can certainly imagine that it must be, yeah, a challenge to make sure that you have competitive rates in place and then making sure that all the players ultimately do what they're supposed to do, especially in the international realm, as you say. But even the US being such a huge continent, that it can be a big coordination impact also. So with regards to being so many players involved in the solar industry, from racking system manufacturers, inverters, and all the other players, what do you think there might be inefficiencies or hidden costs in the solar industry, especially with projects that you guys execute on fields and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are multiple areas you have to take a look at. And it obviously starts with the probably lack of coordination in the shipping efforts, because it comes from different countries, states, directions, where probably the coordination is lacking. So that leads to a higher cost in that regards, but it also leads to more cost on the field. And that's a little bit of what I'm more concerned about is in the dream world and the wishful thinking, it should be like a Toyota plant, right? We should get the things, GIT, just in time, and in the right quality and the right quantity of where we need them, so we don't have muda, we don't have any waste, on the field. And I think that's not the case, by far not the case, but that's what we need to get to. And so this is the end of the planning cycle, and obviously also of the cost logistical view what has to be done before. Today, I think we're too siloed. We're too siloed in many ways in the industry. Everybody's just looking at, okay, I'll buy the modules and then I buy this and that, and there's no integration from a design perspective, nor from a logistical perspective. And again, if you look at and I always take the idea of the automotive industry from the 80s, when the Japanese companies were integrated already, and the Germans and the American companies were not, and so there was like sequentially, working on issues, and we do that still for the most part in the solar industry. And logistic is obviously the kit, the glue in between all these steps, right? And if I don't take that into account, then obviously the efficiencies are not there.
Yeah, yeah, agree. That's what I see in my experience also, especially in that particular field, dealing with clients from your industry. What do you think makes it hard to fix these inefficiencies internally?
I mean, have structures which have grown, over time. I wouldn't say cancer, something maybe similar. So it's kind of hard to slash them off. So how how hard it can be for the federal government, to work on that topic. But it's the same for the companies. And then there is, maybe also the fear of guilt, right? I'm guilty because I didn't do this, that, or the other. Maybe because of the lack of time, or we didn't have the resources. And so now I'm trying to protect my turf, and maybe hiding things which shouldn't be hidden, right? And so if a third party comes in and can take a look at that, right, with a fresh view, and that's true for all the companies. We're getting, at some point our head too deep into the ground, and then we're forgetting, that maybe it could be done in a different way. And to change that is kind of hard, unless somebody also can guide you on how to do that. And so I think, we've seen that, how that has been done with Expectors in that regards. When I came to the US, working for Solux Nana, and we looked at the lack of understanding of really the logistical portion of our business. Expectors was able to identify a chunk of potential. And I think, you can find that in each and every business, because especially when logistic is not your core, right? I mean, here at Sunstall, we're also not being, the IT provider, because that's not our core. We push that out to somebody whose business that is, because my core is building solar. That's my core business. And other people, they have their expertise. I'm not starting now as Allbirds, to become an AI company in a second. Yesterday I did shoes, and tomorrow I do AI. I mean, to me, that's kind of crazy. I mean, it's completely crazy, but okay, we'll see tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks for that explanation and getting into these details. I mean, I see it myself. People are creatures of habit, and a lot of times it's like I always did it this way, and I also myself do certain things the same way I always did them. And sometimes even in when you mention IT or computer topics, they come up. There's a new update, and I'm like, I don't like change. But sometimes change, or oftentimes change is good and ultimately makes things easier. But we have to go through growing pain, and sometimes, as you said, like get a fresh perspective from the outside and to see, hey, how can we become better, more efficient? But we're a little bit blind ourselves because we can't see the forest for the trees potentially. With regards to your industry, solar installer, dealing with the individual, yeah, with all the different players and component manufacturers. How do you think that's different from other industries from a logistics perspective?
I mean, I think the integration is missing, and where you can see that people have identified that is with Dean Solon and his new Create company. I had the pleasure to meet Dean at the plant in Tennessee, And you clearly can tell, that he comes out of automotive because it's the quality approach, but also the understanding that this needs to be integrated. And he does it, right? I mean, if you listen to him, if you see what he does, it's the uneven empire of solar, and he's integrating all these steps, right? From the inverters to the batteries to the trackers to the modules. I mean, is that gonna be working? We will see. I mean, so far, I haven't seen, that companies can do everything and be the best in everything and put that together. Typically, they're good at one thing and then they make the others produce the things for them in a way so that they fit. Again, look at the automotive industry. But, time will tell. I mean, it's going to be interesting if that's possible. But it definitely solves that logistical challenge, because if I have it in one hand, the whole manufacturing capability, and now I can really fine tune it, so you get the inverter, you get the medium voltage skids and all the stuff, together. And I'm also able to skip things, right? Instead of, having loose components and then they need to be assembled on site. If I can do that together now, I mean, that's a huge advantage. And I can also, take the manufacturing from the field to the factory. Obviously, we know that not only is that cheaper because I can just repeat, but the quality is much better.
Yeah. I mean, that is basically that lighthouse function that that oversees the entire project. And then what I experienced when dealing with logistics or with logistics project in the solar industry is like things were super urgent, ship it next day, ship it ASAP, and then the permits weren't ready, right? And then you had to basically, it was complete opposite, look for warehouse storage and try to delay it as much as possible until the permits were ready and things were urgent again. So
Yeah.
that and the complexity with the multiple components. So if at least then one, if this is in one hand and one person or one company deals with that or takes the lighthouse function, if you want, then that decreases the complexity
Yeah, I
significantly.
mean, as you know, we do not have any standardization in this industry, which is a problem, right?
Mhm.
I mean, luckily, the EU was finally able to push the cell phone manufacturer to one way of charging things, right? But we don't have anybody taking responsibility and saying, let's stop, the craziness of more different formats of modules or different connections here and this and that and the other. Because that would help also to immediate, make it more integrated, and therefore, logistically, it's better to deal with the whole thing. But no, let's keep it complicated and the cost up.
Yeah, doesn't get boring. Yeah, I appreciate your insights, Helge. Very interesting for sure. Challenges will stay there, but I think it would be, again, it would be too boring if there wasn't, right? But definitely appreciate the insights, and I'm curious what the developments will show with regards to the companies you mentioned, and of course Sunstall also, um, installing the future for quite a
Every day,
while now.
every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Dennis, thank you so much. Good luck and make the logistic great again. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Executive Efficiency Series. One of the biggest takeaways from this conversation is that inefficiency rarely comes from one dramatic mistake. It comes from disconnected systems, fragmented communication, and operational habits that have simply gone unquestioned for too long. Whether you're in solar, manufacturing, distribution, or any project-driven business, Helge's perspective is a reminder that logistics is not just transportation. It's the connective tissue of execution. This podcast is brought to you by Expectus, helping companies uncover hidden cost structures and build smarter operational efficiency from the inside out. Be sure to follow Executive Efficiency Series for more conversations with leaders focused on cost governance, efficiency, and long-term business performance.